Good morning to Bubers. We're going to go over something today. This is the 1978 Camaro, and we've done a little upgrade that actually kind of was a bit of a heartache, but I think I got them squared away, and I'm going to kind of go over what I had to experience. So, this is my 1978 Camaro, and I've done a little upgrade to it. This now has a Holley Sniper Quadrajet fuel injection system on it. So I could use my original intake, original air cleaner, as much of my original stuff as possible. A few things on the install. So Camaro, the second gen, this one, I've got the fuel pump, fuel filters, everything mounted to the tank. And it's all on this particular car. I'm using all of the original, hardline from the factory. Now, if you have hardline that's still in good condition, definitely replace all of the rubber lines, like this little rubber line here, for the unibody / subframe. And as you can see, I used liberal amounts of zip ties on this. So it's not perfect, but it's very serviceable. Another thing you have to run with this system is a return line, which the return line runs down the driver's side. It actually uses I ran it along with the evap that comes from the canister to the fuel tank. And then my return, I had to focus, okay. Had to drill the side of my fuel filler neck just below this little flap here. That was fun because I didn't drop the tank. I didn't want to drop the tank. I had too much fuel in it. I wasn't going to bother with it. And being that they suggest in their install videos you take the filler neck off, well, on this car it's of course brazed on, so you can't quite do that. Now, of course, Holley's option is you can drop your tank and put a new fuel sending unit with a return and all that, and at like $300 or $400. And I figured a little over $2,000 for the system, plus the fuel pump, the fuel filters, all the stuff to install it. I figured that was enough money spent. Now, it all fits underneath the air intake. This all fits under here just fine. So there it is. The kit came with new studs to mount it. Now the only thing is, where the EGR valve is, you kind of have to cut out the gasket a little bit because the gasket's too big. Now, as you can see, a lot of my emission stuff is not hooked up right now. My PCV's not hooked up because it is one of the things I've been having problems with this system is, and the other one is the bracket back there for the spring return. It keeps moving, so I lose full throttle. It cuts me down to about 50% throttle. But the big nightmare on this car, and I'll show you here in a minute, was actually programming it. So let me get this intake off, or the actual air cleaner off. And I'll show you some of the issues I had with it, which was quite a bother. So there's your unit right there. It's pretty nice. It's pretty compact. This is your fuel regulator. You need the fuel regulator. Now on mine, I just ran the return from the other side over there. Comes around the back of the engine, goes to here, and then it goes down along this pipe right here, which is your evap for your fuel tank. Runs down along there, runs down the chassis, and runs to the back, runs over the tank, between the tank and the rear panel, and then up to the fuel filler neck. So my biggest problem was right here. Okay, see where that little finger there it is. Okay, so that right there on the back side of that, it's hard to see, but there's a little adjustment. Now from the factory, all four of these barrels come out cracked open. So big problem is the system gets too much air. So you have to take a 1 1/16, let's see, but a 1 1/16 way down here, Allen. Back that all the way back out. Make sure that butterfly closes. Then you have to go into the system when you set it up, if it's surging or it won't idle, because you have to wait until the system gets to 160 degrees, and then it goes into an open loop learning, because it'll start out in a closed loop, and a closed loop will just set everything to where you have it set when you program it. Now programming, pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy. Doesn't take a whole lot to do, you know. But I think they set these from the factory because not everybody, of course, that puts a Sniper on their car has, like me, you know, the mildest of the meek when it comes to the engines in their cars. Everybody that's putting Snipers on their cars, you know, they've built them, they've boosted the compression, they've put hotter cams in them, they've done this, that, or the other thing, and well, that's not this car. This car is still the factory 1978 175 horse-pers, you know, mullet shredding 200 pound-feet of torque, Malaise era 350. Now, some of your wiring that you got the main harness that comes off the back of here. So there's a coolant temperature sensor down there, which you have to get an adapter for because it does not fit in the block. Then this is your multi-pin connector for if you're running a fuel pump. Well, you're running a fuel pump, but for if you've got the fans, AC, anything like that, which, you know, obviously I don't have on this one. This is an AC delete car. And then there's your other multi-pin that goes down there. That goes for your connections inside the vehicle. And then this little guy here is your serial port for your CAN bus, basically, for your controller inside the vehicle. And then on this side, because you're supposed to put it on bank 1, way down there is the O2 sensor. And then this is the connection for it right here that runs across the back of the block and then over to the rest of the computer stuffies. So Anyway, my biggest problem with this was with the idle air control motor, which is this fellow right here. It's underneath this plate. It would not idle. It would surge, and it would just shut off. It was a bear to restart. And as far as any of my emission stuff here, it doesn't like it. I have to keep it unhooked for right now until I can find a solution, because if I try to hook up my PCV or any of this evap for the tank or anything like that, it doesn't want to idle. It gets too much air. There's a vacuum leak somewhere, even though I've replaced all of these lines, and I'm thinking it's that guy there. There's just too much air getting in the system, and it messes with that Holly bad. It just can't. It's too sensitive and too rigid. But the big thing is when you go to set your idle air control. So your idle air control is what's supposed to determine your idle. It's not your idle adjustment over here. You know, that little screw right there, that really doesn't determine your idle. So the idle air control is what determines what your car idles at. That's just to open the butterfly, basically. Let the required amount of air into the car. But that's what you move that and you adjust it until you can get your idle air control to show on your screen between 8 and 12%. It has to be between 8 and 12. If it's not between 8 and 12, it won't run correctly. It cannot show 0. So we'll put this back together real quick. We'll fire up the car. I'll show you, it does run really good with it. I mean, now that it's adjusted, it runs absolutely phenomenal. I mean, am I completely sold on it yet? No. And another thing, even though you get the master kit like I did, you will not get a fuel block-off plate. So your fuel pump block-off plate, you're going to have to buy separately. Now, I understand that, you know, times are tough, but if you're going to offer somebody a master kit for X amount of dollars, then a fuel block-off plate should be, you know, at least an option, because not everybody just has fuel block-off. See, there's my fuel block-off plate down there. And of course I had to RTV the hell out of it because one of the bolts broke. So now let's get into the actual system of the car, which in itself is pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of neat. Now my car had the old school radio in it, and I blocked off the radio, the old radio, with a little block off plate, and that's where I mounted my screen. And then I just put my Bluetooth stereo down there instead of chopping this all up. So, neutral. Lights. Okay, you see the Holly dash come on. And then she fires up. And then you've got, hard to see, showing just about 1,000 RPM. My idle air control is 83%. Air fuel ratio is 13:1. I don't have, because I'm using the original. So where your tack port is on your HEI, that's where you hook up your RPMs for the, that's where your RPMs for your Holly go. So that's coming off the tack on your HEI, and then there's a provision in the wiring for the Holly that you hook your actual tack up to. And then on the outside of the car, you have to hook up your, which I'll show you that here in a minute too. I forgot about that. So you have to hook your positive and your negative directly from the Sniper directly to the battery. It cannot be to a switch source or a battery source in your fuse box. And then you do have an ignition source underneath there that you have to, it has to have at least 10 volts cranking in order for it to work. So really there's only 2 wires running here other than the of course the wiring for the dash. Man, it's so hard to get out of this car in the garage. That you need to hook up inside the car. So then, out here, excuse the bad camera work, you have to have your positive and your negative. So I bought these from the auto parts store, and they're just screw in, bolt on, which came in handy because I could put my battery tender on there and then have the Holly power for the Holly as well. So I mean, the system all in all is not that hard to install. It is a little bit finicky, but it will run out good. So here's my coolant temp. So right now it's running in a closed loop, so it's running in a pre-programmed loop, and the pre-programmed loop is determined by what you put in the Holly Wizard. So like my car, it's, you know, you're running off coil negative, stock cam, 700 RPMs at idle, you know, because it's all stock. And then in that closed loop, that determines, you know, the Holly sets itself up to be like, okay, this is what I'm running. So, I mean, it's pretty nice. So now when the engine warms up, it'll go into an open loop or learning loop. And then that's when you make all your adjustments. So, like I said, you just pull the Holly dash out. I'm not going to show how to do this. There are other videos on how to do this. But you basically get the engine warmed up. You adjust your idle up to close to 2,000 RPMs or until your air ATS until your IAC comes up to between 8 and 12. Now that's only on this Holly that needs to be at 8 and 12. I'm bringing up to at least it stabilizes somewhere between 8 and 12, and then you shut the car off, reset it, and fire it back up, and then it should idle at your suggested 700 RPM, and your IAC should stay somewhere between 8 and 12 where you've set it. I've got this one set at its low point. It should be 8. Occasionally it does drop below 8. It might drop to 7 or 6 and then catch itself. But for the most part, when it's sitting here idling like this, it'll sit at 8. A little lower than I want, but I'm not gonna futz with it because it took me this long to get it to sit this good. So I'm not gonna mess with it too much. But we'll wait until it gets up to 165 degrees, and you'll see that IAC drop down to 8%. And what that IAC does is draws air through that little provision I pointed out earlier at the back of the fuel injection unit. If you put your finger over it, you feel vacuum. That's another reason why I think this car is so sensitive about vacuum. It sucks, because I'd like to have my emissions hooked up, but if I can't run them, then I'll dummy them in and make them look good. Because it should pass a smog test, because you have, you know, the oxygen sensor in bank 1, and they say it doesn't matter which bank you put it in, but I've also heard it should be on bank 1, so I put mine on bank 1. It just has to be 18 inches past the collector, basically, if you have headers, or for, in my case, I put it 18 inches past the stock manifolds. So here's where we get to the boring part of the video. I run out of shit to talk about until the car warms up. But really, you know, this is the Camaro, and you know, so far since I've had it, it's been new tires and wheels, new shocks all the way around. Check all the brakes, tighten the wheel bearing. Of course, put in the Bluetooth stereo system, all new speakers. Add the Holly. You know, that's pretty much been it. Oh, you know, put the tack on the steering wheel, because there's no tack. I didn't have a tack when I first bought the car, so that was one of the first things I did. As for the other vehicles I've made videos of, that's still there. And I haven't done a video on that. I should. That car is rowdy. That's my youngest son's car. That's about a 700 horsepower Whipple supercharged Mustang. That thing's just rude and fun to tell to drive. And then my pickup truck that shows up in all my other videos is not here because, well, one, I traded the red truck that the other videos are on in, and I haven't yet unveiled to YouTube what I've gotten since. But it is unfortunately up at the local Ram dealer for an emissions issue. Alright, so we're at 176. It's still running pretty cold. The IAC's still pretty high, but it is now in an open loop. So probably if I were to drive it, the IAC would come down, but the engine's still pretty cold. Because look, that's your manifold air temperature is 33 degrees. It's not warm out here today. Pretty low on my duty cycle. Charging at 13 volts. That's what I do like about this dash. I can see everything. My manifold air pressure is between 33 and 34%. Coolant temperature is at 183 degrees. And what's that, 13%? Oh, that's air fuel ratio is 13%. And my battery voltage is at 14. So yeah, I do like that dash. It does give me quite a bit of information. And then that's just double stick taped on my homemade stereo block off plate. And then the wires all come in right there. And I had to drill that hole pretty much bigger than I wanted to get it into the car. And then everything just runs underneath my dash there, and underneath the carpet goes across to my glove box, which I still need to do some cleaning up on my wiring, but those 2 wires over there for my tack, and then the other wires are there. So obviously my IAC's not going to come down. But anyway, that's the biggest issue I had with this, was setting the IAC, because it was running terribly. It was cutting out, it was sputtering, it was surging. But was it worth it? Yeah. I mean, if you have a troublesome carburetor on your car, then yeah, it might be worth it. If you want to use it more daily, it might be worth it. For me, this is not a daily, but I just wanted to have the reliability of something that I could, you know, leave sit in my garage for a week or 2 or 3 or a month, and just get out, hit the key, let it prime, boom, fires right up. And the system itself is pretty quiet. You can hear the injectors tapping, which is fine, and you hear a little bit from that fuel pump. But I guess the godsend on this one is, you know, this car, as you can tell by the bottom shots, is never a snow car. It was never really driven in the rain. All the pinch welds are in good shape. It has been, you know, repainted, but I mean, it's still solid. Oh, new weather stripping. That was another thing I had to do with this shortly after I got it. So, yeah. And do yourself a favor. I wanted to get the original ones. I got these off Summit. They're okay. But I had problems with this. These little tabs pulling out front and back. They don't quite line up here. You know, here doesn't quite line up on the door. So there is a bit of a gap. So if you could wait for the better kit, wait for the better kit. And then I had to adjust the driver's side window, which there's a guy out there that has the factory explanation on how to adjust the driver's side window. Oh my god. New hinges in the driver's side door, and they're still kind of saggy. Yeah, what I found out about the driver's side window is somebody had been in there before adjusting the door years ago when my wife's uncle had the car, the original owner. They really messed up those hinges, and they tried to adjust the window, and they ended up misplacing or just not putting in the original stops. So the window would roll up crooked or roll up past where it was supposed to be. I had it fall apart on me once because they didn't put the bolts in right. That was fun. So yeah. But if you have any questions about the Holly, let a brother know.